what it looks to me like is going on is it's a gathering of people who are interested in understanding how their minds work, how their experience gets created, and as a result of that understanding, having an easier experience of life, finding improvements in their relationships, their work life, and discovering something about their own nature that maybe they hadn't seen before.
And what have you discovered about how your mind works?
One thing I discovered is that it's a whole lot simpler than I thought it was. So I have a background in the field, working in the field of healing and psychological, emotional healing. I used to think it was very complicated, and that there were a lot of things that could impact, my feeling state and my psychological state. This understanding has helped me to see that it's much simpler than that, and that there's something that is universal to all of us, that we all have in common, and that it's universally helpful for people to understand that.
And do you now use this in work or just?
This is the basis of my work now. Yeah.
What is your work?
I'm a well-being coach. I run trainings and workshops, and I also help other people to learn this understanding so they can share it in whatever field they work in.
Right. And where can people find you?
My name is Ian Watson, and my website is called theinsightspace.com.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Right now, I'm not even sure what's going on. I'm suddenly feeling a bit. Foundations have been taken away from me, because all the things I've been talking about, I'm a coach as well, so I've been coaching people around goal setting and goal getting and finding your purpose in life, and all that suddenly seems a bit superficial now. So right now I'm in the middle of this space. I'm in this space of wondering what's next.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
I feel very excited, actually. I think it's a very exciting time to be going through what I'm going through, because suddenly means I'm opening up to lots more opportunities and possibilities.
Right.
And it feels a bit shaky, but actually it feels very exciting as well.
Right. And if you had to explain to someone what's really going on here at this conference,
I think
what's really going on
is a bunch of people coming together who are going to transform the world in the years to come.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess what's going on here is that people are sharing something very profound. And it's being shared in all sorts of different ways. We've had a number of different talks this morning. What's really interesting to me is that we've heard a number of different presentations from people who have been influenced by a man called Sydney Banks, who first shared a message from a very profoundly personal experience in the 1970s. And he had a very strong desire to share that with the world. And it's been passed on from one generation, if you like, to another. And he was here back in the 70s with a small group of people, 40, and now we're here with 1,000 people, and that message is still going. I'm really enjoying what's being talked about in the wonderful variety that there is here. Because what's really lovely is that whereas normally we would be hearing something very philosophical for the intellect to catch hold of, here people are talking from the heart, and they're very much speaking what has touched them at a very profound level. And sometimes we hear that on the stage in a presentation, and sometimes we hear it in this queue as we wait for our lunch. What's being talked about is a new paradigm of psychology, and for many, many years psychologists have looked at other human beings, wanted to help them move from their brokenness to their wholeness, and sought for all sorts of techniques and modalities that would help somebody to come away from their brokenness into their strength. And here, as we listen to the message of the three principles of mind, consciousness and thought, there's a new view of humanity that each and every human being, without exception, throughout the world has mental health innately. And when we point that out for people, rather than looking for strategies that will cure them, they look inside for the answer. And that seems to be found very easily and very compassionately. And they fill up with something that they never knew they had before. Yeah, I am. I've worked in counselling and psychotherapy now for the last 25, 30 years, and my work has changed enormously, really. I see that before I used to look at so many different people who were coming with their varying psychological difficulties, and I would think some people as very easy to work with and some people as being very hard to work with when they had a very complex crisis in their mental health. And I'm seeing more and more and more and more now from this understanding that we're all the same, that these labels that we've been using for a long time, they don't mean very much really. It's just our thinking about life. And sometimes we get too interested in what we call our brokenness, and we start speaking about that as being bipolar or schizophrenic or manic depressive or deeply depressed or whatever. And they're just words for the intensity of our thinking around those subjects.
Right.
And when we start looking in another direction at something else within us, we get interested in our wellness. And when people are become interested and curious about their wellness, that gets bigger, and what we've called the brokenness diminishes. And in my experience, very quickly.
I come across a lot the idea that the people that are in control of us, that there are people who are controlling how the world works, and that mainly they are behind the scenes, and they use other people, such as politicians, in order to achieve and get what they want, and that these people are psychopaths, and that they don't have, they literally don't have the ability, they are suffering from a pathology, and they don't have the ability to feel compassion like we do. And if they were walking along the street and a baby's head was cut off and blood coming out, it doesn't make any difference to them, because they literally have that part of their brain has atrophied. What would you say in response to that?
I think that's a really, really profoundly interesting question. I would say that we can get very interested in that, what we call that broken part. But actually, if we pay some interest in another part within them, things are very likely to change.
Great, thank you.